Coffee and your gut. After 60, if you drink coffee every morning, don't take your next sip until you hear this. A massive study looked at more than 150 different foods and drinks to see which ones had the biggest impact on gut health. The results surprised researchers, and honestly, it surprised many doctors too. The winner wasn't yogurt, it wasn't probiotics, it wasn't leafy greens. In fact, it's something millions of Americans drink every single morning without giving it a second thought. It was called I'm Dr. Lee. I'm a gastroenterologist, a gut specialist with 40 years of clinical practice, and for every person who was told to stop drinking. It is exactly what we are covering today and what that finding means for every coffee drinker. I created this channel because the conversation that saves a patient's health should not stay inside a clinic. The 10-minute office visit was not designed to give you this conversation. So I'm giving it to you here. What I share here is what I tell my patients after the appointment ends. The real mechanisms, the honest numbers, the things most doctors never have time to explain. If you want that in your feed every week, subscribe now. It takes 1 second. Today, I'm going to show you 4 things, and I want you to stay for what coffee does to gut bacteria. New study, 22,000 people. All 4 because they build on each other. Number 1, something about your gut bacteria almost nobody in medicine is telling patients over 60. Number 2, a difference between 2 types of coffee that could change everything depending on your situation. Most people have this completely wrong. Number 3, and I'm going to show you this, inside your body, a connection between your morning cup and something affecting your brain every single day. And number 4, this is the one that surprises people most who should still be cautious about coffee. And the answer is not what most people assume. Stay with me because number 3, once you see the mechanism, you'll never think about your morning coffee the same way again. How many of you have been told by a doctor to cut back on coffee? Keep watching because this research changes that conversation. Let me show you what is actually happening inside your gut right now. Every time you drink coffee, your gut is home to approximately 100 trillion microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, and other tiny living things. We call this the gut microbiome. Think of it like a garden inside your intestines, and the mix of organisms in that garden determines how healthy your gut is. Researchers at the University College Cork, one of the world's leading centers for gut science, study what happens to this bacterial garden when people drink coffee regularly, both caffeinated and decaffeinated. Here's what surprised even the researchers. In the largest study ever conducted on coffee in the gut, published in Nature Microbiology in 2024, scientists analyzed over 22,000 people and found that coffee positively affected 115 separate species of gut bacteria. 115 species from a single daily habit. No other food tested out of over 150 came close to that number. What they decaf versus regular. The inside body difference. Most seniors don't know found is that coffee significantly increased the presence of 2 specific types of beneficial bacteria. Think of these as the security guards of your gut garden. They appear to crowd out the harmful bacteria that cause inflammation and infection. Now, as a gastroenterologist, I want you to hear this. A study of nearly 500,000 people, 471,000 participants followed, over 7.5 years found that coffee drinkers had half the risk of developing liver cancer compared to non-drinkers. Not a small difference, half. And a 2024 study published in the International Journal of Cancer found that people who already had colorectal cancer and continued drinking coffee had significantly lower rates of cancer recurrence and lower all-cause mortality than those who did not. I share those numbers not to tell you coffee cures cancer. It does not. I share them because the biological pathway we are about to discuss, the polyphenol pathway, the gut bacteria, the anti-inflammatory effects, is the same pathway researchers believe is driving these findings. But here's what nobody told you about how coffee does this. And the answer is not what you'd expect. Most people assume it's the caffeine. It's not. Now, why does coffee do this? What is the actual process happening inside your body? Coffee is one of the richest sources of polyphenols in the entire human diet. Polyphenols, think of them as protective plant compounds, almost like a natural medicine locked inside the coffee bean. They survive roasting, brewing, and even the decaffeination process. When you drink coffee, these polyphenols travel the gut-brain highway, how your gut controls your mood and memory through your stomach and small intestine. That's the long coiled tube in the middle of your belly, mostly passing through without being fully absorbed. They arrive at your large intestine, the colon, and that's where the action happens. The bacteria, like Eggerichia, break down those polyphenols into smaller molecules called phenolic metabolites. Those smaller molecules absorb into your bloodstream, and research suggests they have anti inflammatory properties, meaning they help calm irritation and swelling throughout your body. The lead researcher, Professor John Cryan, put it this way: caffeine is only part of the story. The polyphenols are doing something in your gut that most people never knew was happening. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you what connects your morning coffee directly to your brain. That's number 3. And it changes everything. But first, decaf, because this surprised me too. I want to pause here because what I'm about to show you about decaf is the finding that changed my clinical advice. And coming up in a few minutes, I'm going to show you inside your body a connection you've never seen explained on camera. That's coming. But first, the standard assumption has been caffeinated coffee gives you the benefits and decaf gives you the taste without the benefit. That assumption turns out to be substantially wrong. The decaffeination process removes roughly 97 to 99% of the caffeine. But the polyphenols, the protective plant compounds, they stay. They survive decaffeination almost entirely intact, which means when decaffeinated coffee reaches your large intestine, the same bacteria are there who should actually be cautious about coffee. The answer surprises people: waiting. They break down the same polyphenols. The same protective process unfolds without the caffeine. In the Cork study, the decaf group showed improvements in learning and memory. Researchers believe this is also driven by the polyphenols reaching the gut and interacting with the gut-brain connection I'm about to show you. Caffeinated coffee showed its own benefits too: reduced anxiety and improved sustained attention. But most people's understanding of why that happens is incomplete. Have you or has someone you love been told to stop drinking coffee? Keep that in mind as I tell you about a patient of mine. I had a 68-year-old patient. I'll call her Mrs. B. She stopped all coffee after her cardiologist flagged a mild heart rhythm issue. She came to me and asked, "Did I make a mistake?" My answer was specific. Decaffeinated coffee was likely giving her almost the same gut microbiome benefit without the caffeine her cardiologist was concerned about. That's not ignoring her doctor. That's a better informed conversation with him. Most people assume caffeine reduces anxiety through its direct effect on the brain. The actual mechanism is more interesting than that, and it runs through your gut. Let me show you. I'm about to show you what happens in your gut every morning goes directly to your brain. What I'm about to show you is the reason why what happens in your gut every morning from your cup of coffee doesn't stay in your gut. Running from your brain all the way down to your gut is a nerve called the vagus nerve. Think of it as a direct phone line between your gut and your brain. It passes through your chest, past your heart, past your lungs, all the way down into your intestines. And here is what surprises most people. Approximately 80% of the signals on that Dr. Lee's 5-point coffee guide for adults over 60 phone line are moving upward from your gut to your brain, not the other way around. Your gut is not just digesting food. It is sending a constant stream of information to your brain. Information that shapes your mood, your memory, your anxiety level, and how clearly you think throughout the day. Now, serotonin. Most people think serotonin is made in the brain. It isn't. About 90% of your serotonin, your body's feel-good signal, is made in the lining of your gut in specialized cells that sit right along your intestinal wall. And here's the key connection to coffee. The bacteria in your gut, including the ones that coffee feeds, directly influence how much serotonin those cells produce. This is one reason researchers found that coffee drinkers showed improved mood and reduced anxiety. It may not be purely the caffeine. Part of it is traveling through your gut-brain phone line. And here's what most doctors haven't had time to tell their patients yet. The last 15 years of gut research have completely overturned the way we understand the gut. We now know it is a primary site of immune function, mood regulation, and direct brain communication. And coffee, one of the most common daily habits of the patients I have treated for 40 years, is interacting with all three of those. It's what 40 years of GI medicine taught me about your morning routine. One systems every single morning. And I want to acknowledge something here because I know many of you have been getting contradictory information about coffee for years. One study says it's good for you, the next says cut back. That confusion is real. And it's not your fault because the science genuinely was incomplete until recently. That is exactly why having someone who has spent 40 years studying the gut walk you through the actual mechanism matters. And I want to be honest about this, I am not going to tell you coffee is safe for everyone. There is a specific group of people for whom the calculation genuinely changes. And most videos on this topic skip this part entirely. I won't. This is number 4. This is what I told you would surprise you. Here it is. The Cork researchers found that habitual coffee drinkers showed higher impulsivity and emotional reactivity scores than non-drinkers. This is an association, not proof that coffee causes these traits, but it tells us that coffee's effects are not identical for every person. There are 4 specific situations where coffee genuinely changes the risk calculation. Number 1, significant acid reflux disease, GERD, or a condition called Barrett's esophagus. GERD, in plain terms, is when stomach acid repeatedly splashes up into your food pipe and causes chronic burning. Barrett's esophagus is a change that can happen to the food pipe lining after years of that acid exposure. The cells begin to look abnormal under a microscope, and in a small number of cases, it can progress toward cancer. Coffee can relax the valve between your food pipe and stomach, allowing more acid to splash up. For people with Barrett's, that matters. Number 2, patients on certain heart medications, specifically warfarin or digoxin. Your liver processes medications through chemical pathways. Think of them as assembly lines in a factory. Caffeine uses one of those same assembly lines. When you drink a lot of coffee, it can speed up or slow down how fast your liver processes these medications. If the medication leaves too fast, it stops working as well. If it stays too long, the dose can become too high, worth a direct conversation with your doctor. Number 3 is the one most patients tell me doesn't apply to them until I ask one specific question, and then they go quiet. Number 3, anyone with active gastrointestinal bleeding or someone who recently had GI surgery. Coffee stimulates the stomach to produce more acid and can speed up movement through the digestive tract. For someone healing from a bleeding site or surgery, that extra stimulation is something we want to avoid. And number 4, people with significant anxiety disorders. Caffeine triggers your adrenal glands, 2 small glands that sit on top of your kidneys to release stress hormones, cortisol, and adrenaline. In a healthy nervous system, this is the alertness feeling. In people whose anxiety is already running hot, that same hormonal release can amplify the anxiety instead of producing focus. Think of it like adding pressure to a pipe that's already at its limit. If you are in none of those 4 categories, and many of you watching are not, the evidence now supports that moderate daily coffee is genuinely beneficial for your gut bacteria, your gut-brain connection, and potentially your long-term memory and mood. If you are in one of those categories, this is not a video that replaces your doctor's advice. What it is a reason to have a more specific, more informed conversation with your physician. If you have a spouse, a parent, or a friend who has been told to cut back on coffee, please send this video to them right now. This is exactly the honest mechanism-based conversation that should happen before a blanket restriction is applied. The share button is right below this video. After 40 years of gastroenterology and reviewing this research, here is what I now tell my patients. 1. If you drink 1 to 3 cups per day and have none of the 4 risk conditions, the evidence supports continuing. The gut benefit is real. The polyphenol benefit applies to caffeinated and decaf both. 2. If coffee gives you heartburn or reflux, that's your body telling you something specific about your stomach valve. Talk to your doctor about whether decaf might preserve the gut benefit while reducing the reflux risk in your case. Number 3 is the one most people who stop coffee never actually do, but it may be the most important conversation you have with your doctor this year. 3, if you stopped on blanket advice and you miss it, bring this research to your next appointment. Ask specifically which of the 4 risk categories applies to me. If none do, the restriction may not be evidence-based for your situation. 4, what you add to coffee matters. And I want to give you the data on this because this is not an opinion. This is a 147,000 person study. A study of 147,000 people followed for over 12 years found that people who drank unsweetened coffee 2 to 4 cups a day had a 16% lower risk of gastrointestinal disease. People who added sugar or artificial sweeteners to their coffee, that protective effect largely disappeared. The polyphenols were still there. The benefit was not. Black coffee preserves the polyphenol gut pathway best. What you add to it changes the equation. And number five, this is the piece of advice the research says matters most. And it has nothing to do with how much coffee you drink. And five, this is not a 1 cup miracle. The bacterial changes in this research happened over weeks of consistent daily consumption. Consistency over time is what builds the benefit, not the size of any single cup. I want to leave you with something that 40 years of looking inside the human gut has taught me. The gut is not a passive tube. It is a living, active ecosystem that responds to what you do consistently every morning before the rest of the world is awake. And the research we now have tells us that one of the most common morning habits of the adults I have spent my career treating is doing more for their gut bacteria, their mood, and their brain health than almost anyone understood 10 years ago. Remember the study I opened with 150 foods tested and coffee came out on top? This is why. Not because of marketing, not because of caffeine, because of what it does inside your gut every single morning. If that's relevant to you or someone you love, subscribe so you don't miss it. That is not a reason to be careless about it. It is a reason to be informed about it, to know the mechanism, to know which situations genuinely require caution, and to make decisions based on actual clinical evidence, not fear and not false reassurance. That is what I try to give you on this channel every week. I've put a free gut health tracker in the pin comment below. It helps you track how your gut responds to different foods and drinks and gives you real information to bring to your next doctor's visit. The link is in the pin comment. It's free. I'm Dr. Lee. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next.